I was never the jealous type. Let's get that straight from the beginning. I'm not the man who checks your phone while you're in the shower or glares at a barista for smiling too brightly in your direction. That sort of thing always struck me as the territory of insecure men in their 20s who mistake possession for passion. I'm Julian, 38, a civil engineer. My world is built on load-bearing walls, predictable physics, and the quiet satisfaction of a blueprint realized. I was, until recently, a firm believer in the architecture of monogamy. My then wife, Celeste, was 35. She was a whirlwind of spontaneity and charm, a woman so beautiful it sometimes felt like a public performance. She was also, as it turned out, profoundly allergic to the very foundations we'd built. But she didn't mention this for the first 10 years. That would have been too straightforward. Instead, she waited for a Tuesday evening in late July, under the soft glow of our own string lights, and dropped her little truth bomb with the casual air of someone ordering another glass of Sauvignon Blanc. It happened at a backyard barbecue. Our backyard, our friends, our mismatched folding chairs. The air smelled of grilled chicken and freshly cut grass. There was the requisite colleague who took the role of grill master with the gravity of a brain surgeon. We were deep in the suburban dream phase. Mortgage payments, car leases, a shared Google Calendar. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. And then Celeste, my clever, witty, NPR-loving wife, let out a laugh that was just a little too loud at someone's joke. She raised her plastic cup of wine, a gesture both grand and ridiculous, and declared to the small circle of friends, "Honestly, I think open relationships just make sense. A little freedom, a little fun. Maybe monogamy isn't for everyone, right?" A nervous ripple of laughter went through the group. It was the kind of polite chuckle that says, "What a funny abstract concept." Let's all pretend we didn't just hear that and move on to discussing property taxes. But I wasn't laughing. I looked at her, and she met my gaze across the flickering citronella candle. There was a smirk playing on her lips, a glint of defiance in her eyes. That's when I knew. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't the wine talking. This was a trial balloon, a calculated shot across the bow of our marriage. I felt a cold dread coil in my stomach, but years of navigating client meetings and contractor disputes had taught me the art of the placid facade. I smiled. I actually smiled, because sometimes the only thing standing between raw fury and stunned confusion is a thin veneer of customer service politeness. "Well," I said, raising my beer bottle, "I always thought commitment was kind of the point." Celeste didn't miss a beat. "Sure," she shot back, her voice light but edged with steel. "If you're into the idea of ownership." Ownership. She said it as if I were a tyrannical landlord trying to put a fence around her personality. The mood shifted instantly, like someone had told a deeply inappropriate joke at a funeral. Our friends suddenly found the pattern of the night sky fascinating. The grill master became intensely focused on the char marks of a lonely hamburger patty. The silence was so thick you could hear the condensation dripping from a cooler onto the patio stones. I leaned in, my voice low enough for only her to hear. "Is this a joke, Celeste, or a confession?" She took a slow, deliberate sip of her wine, her eyes never leaving mine. "It's just a thought, Julian. Just a thought. It's always just a thought, right up until that thought is tangled up in someone else's bedsheets." We didn't stay outside much longer. The party's cheerful atmosphere died faster than our intimacy had lately, and that was saying something. The last of the guests shuffled out with hurried goodbyes and empty smiles, the kind people use when they want to escape a collapsing building without being asked to help hold up a wall. Celeste disappeared inside, humming softly as if she'd merely commented on the weather. I remained in the yard, watching the string lights sway in the gentle breeze, half wishing one would break free and put me out of my misery. I cleaned up in silence. I folded the chairs, collected the empty bottles, and scraped the sad, untouched remnants of coleslaw into a trash bag. She didn't come back out. She didn't offer to help. She didn't even say goodnight. She had simply vanished into the house, a magician who had performed a disappearing act to zero applause. I stood there, gripping the heavy trash bag like it was a life preserver, trying to understand how my meticulously planned life, my stable, engineered marriage, had just been turned into an unsolicited TED Talk on ethical non-monogamy. The next morning felt like waking up next to a stranger who knew where you kept the good coffee. Celeste was already in the kitchen, pretending to be productive. No one reorganizes their spice rack at 7:30 a.m. on a Wednesday unless they are either nesting for the apocalypse or desperately avoiding a conversation. Given the events of last night, I leaned toward the ladder. I walked in, the silence of the house pressing in on me. I grabbed the coffee pot and poured myself exactly 1 cup, making it clear I wasn't making one for her. The petty gesture felt both childish and necessary. So, I began, my voice deliberately neutral. That thing you said last night. She didn't look at me. Her focus was entirely on arranging the paprika and cumin jars as if they held the secrets to the universe. What about it? Are you seriously suggesting we open our marriage? I asked. Or was that just some kind of performative wine wisdom for your audience? She shrugged, a full dismissive shrug of the shoulders. It was just a thought, Julian. There it was again, that magical phrase, the universal get-out-of-jail-free card for people who want to lob a grenade into a room and then walk away before it detonates. Cool, I said, my voice dripping with a sarcasm I couldn't contain. Just wanted to check before I start calling my old high school girlfriend. She didn't laugh. Instead, she pulled out the trump card of every emotional manipulator. You're being dramatic, she said, finally turning to face me. It's just exploring ideas. You're taking this way too seriously. It's a fantastic way to make a man feel crazy for having a perfectly normal reaction to being emotionally blindsided in his own backyard. Celeste, I said, setting my mug down on the counter with a firm thud, there's a difference between thinking out loud and beta testing infidelity. She rolled her eyes, a gesture of pure, unadulterated dismissal. I walked away. Arguing with someone who has already rewritten the narrative in their own head is like trying to reason with a podcast. A few nights later, she was out for drinks with coworkers. By coworkers, I suspected she meant a specific coworker named Derek. I only knew his name because, a month prior, she had been scrolling through her phone on the couch and accidentally airdropped a screenshot of their text messages to the smart television while I was trying to watch a basketball game. The image of their flirty banter flashed on the 60-inch screen for a full 3 seconds before she frantically shut it off, laughing it away as a tech glitch. At the time, I gave her the benefit of the doubt because apparently I enjoyed emotional torment. She came home around 11 that night, humming. It wasn't a drunk hum. It was a flirty, self-satisfied hum. It was the specific brand of post-date melody a person hums when they've been thoroughly validated by someone who doesn't know they cry over assembling IKEA furniture. She dropped her purse on the floor and flopped onto the couch next to me, acting as if nothing was out of the ordinary. You good? I asked, my eyes fixed on the television. Yep, she chirped, her voice bright and airy. Cool. I didn't say anything else. I just let the silence settle between us. That's the thing about silence in a dying marriage. It doesn't scream. It just quietly, methodically strangles everything. The truth, when it finally comes, is rarely a dramatic cinematic reveal. It's usually something mundane, a product of dumb luck and terrible lock screen etiquette. It was a Saturday morning. Celeste was in the shower, the sound of running water filling the house. I was in the kitchen, my own phone nearly dead. I reached for the charger on the counter, the same one she used. As my hand got close, her phone, which was lying face up, lit up with a new notification. I wasn't trying to snoop. I wasn't even looking at it directly, but the glowing words on the screen were impossible to miss. It was a text from Derek. Last night was incredible. Same time next week? I froze. My hand hovered over the charger, my fingers tingling. It wasn't a hot flush of rage that washed over me, or a sharp stab of pain. It was a feeling of absolute, unfiltered clarity. It was like a blurry photograph, snapping into perfect, horrifying focus. All the just a thought crap, all the you're being dramatic accusations, it was all just smoke. This was the fire. Her thoughts had a name, a schedule, and apparently great stamina. A few moments later, she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a white towel, humming that same self-satisfied tune. Your phone went off, I said, my voice unnervingly calm. She glanced at it, a flicker of panic crossing her face, before being replaced by a practiced nonchalance. She blinked. Oh, that's nothing. Nothing? I asked, tilting my head. You explore ideas with heart emojis now? Her face tightened. The mask of easy charm slipped. He's just a friend, Julian. We're just talking. I nodded slowly, a grim understanding dawning on me. Right, talking. With your bodies. There was no yelling, no scene. Just one clean, verbal strike, delivered right between the crumbling wall of her delusion and the new foundation of my detachment. She didn't reply. She couldn't. I didn't wait for her to try. I turned and walked into my home office, closed the door, and opened my laptop. The rage I hadn't shown her now fueled my fingers as they flew across the keyboard. I changed every single password we shared. Banking, email, Netflix, Amazon Prime, even the Spotify family plan. Then, as a final, bitter cherry on top, I went into our router settings. I logged in and changed the name of our home Wi-Fi network. From Julian and Celeste to Just a Thought 123. If my marriage was going down in flames, I was damn well going to bring sarcasm with me. That night, something fundamental shifted. Not in her, but in me. I was no longer a participant in her drama. I was an observer, and I was taking notes. After that night, I stopped playing my role in the fantasy Celeste had constructed. She still floated around the house as if nothing had happened, scrolling through her phone on the couch, her legs draped elegantly over the side like she was the star of some indie film titled Woman Who Deserves More. But I was no longer the supporting actor. No more "How was your day?" check-ins. No more shared dinners. Unless you count the lonely sound of my microwave humming at 6:43 p.m. sharp while she was recharging in the guest room. That's right, the guest room. The same room we used to offer to visiting relatives and her vegan cousin from Seattle. Now it was her little freedom cave. She had suggested it, saying we both needed space to think. I didn't argue. I didn't protest. I simply let her move in, like a tenant in her own marriage. The next morning, I made just one cup of coffee. I drank it in silence while reading the news on my tablet. When she emerged from the hallway, dressed for work, she looked confused. "Aren't you working from home today?" she asked. "I am." "Then why are you up so early?" "I felt like having a productive morning," I said, taking a sip without looking up. She waited, expecting more of an explanation. I gave her none. She left with a perplexed look on her face, the look of someone who walked into a familiar room and found all the furniture rearranged. That same day, I signed up for a gym 5 minutes from the house. It wasn't one of those fancy places with eucalyptus-infused towels and a smoothie bar. It was a place of iron, sweat, and harsh fluorescent lights that made everyone look slightly haunted. It was perfect. That first workout nearly killed me. My body hadn't seen the inside of a gym since the Obama administration. But it didn't matter. With every drop of sweat, with every screaming muscle fiber, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Ownership. Not over her, over myself. I started going every day. 6:30 a.m. Same gray hoodie. No excuses. While Celeste was off floating through whatever dopamine-fueled enlightenment she thought she was chasing, I was busy dragging myself back from the emotional grave she had been digging for us. By the end of the second week, the house felt different. Her high heels were no longer scattered by the front door. Her expensive perfume no longer lingered in the master bathroom. Her drama no longer echoed in the kitchen. I moved her stack of unread books off my nightstand and replaced them with a small digital clock and a succulent I had managed to keep alive for 3 weeks. Progress. I started sleeping better. I started thinking more clearly. Even my Spotify algorithm got the memo. The playlist shifted from moody acoustic sadness to hard-hitting drum lines with titles like "No More Mr. Nice Guy." I was reclaiming my territory. 1 square foot, 1 dumbbell, 1 song at a time. I wasn't looking to meet anyone. Let's be perfectly clear about that. I wasn't scrolling through Tinder, looking for emotional CPR. I wasn't posting shirtless thirst traps on Instagram or buying unnecessary tubs of protein powder to impress anyone. I just went to the gym every morning because it was the only place in the world that didn't talk back. And that's where it happened. It was week 3, back day. I was in the zone, my hoodie soaked through, earbuds blasting a motivational but terrible rock anthem. I was doing my best impression of a man who knew what he was doing with a set of lat pull-down machines. I finished my set, grabbed my towel, and turned too fast to head to the water fountain. Boom, a sharp thud, a surprised yelp, and the distinct sound of someone hitting the rubberized floor. Whoa, damn, I'm so sorry. I immediately dropped to a crouch, my heart pounding. "Are you okay?" She blinked up at me, breath short, her messy ponytail slightly askew. She was wearing leggings that were scuffed at the knee and had a half laugh on her face that said this was absolutely not how her day was supposed to go. "I think I just met a linebacker," she muttered, a wince of pain mixed with humor in her voice. I laughed. A real, genuine laugh. The first one in weeks. That was my fault. Total blind spot. "Can you stand?" Name's Clara, she said, smirking through the pain. Apparently, I meet new people by falling directly into them. I helped her up, slow and careful. The way she leaned on me wasn't desperate or dramatic. It was practical. It was also weirdly familiar, like we had done this before, in another life where things weren't so damn complicated. We ended up in the urgent care clinic down the street. It was a sprained ankle. No drama, no overt flirting. Just two adults surviving a mishap in the land of sweat and metal. I drove her home, a small bungalow only 10 minutes from my place. As I helped her up the front steps, she turned to me. Would it be totally weird if I asked you for a ride to physical therapy next week? My car is a stick shift. I should have said no. I should have kept my world small and controlled, but I didn't. Sure, I heard myself say. I can do that. 1 week turned into 2. We didn't talk about past relationships. We didn't trauma dump. We just existed. She told me about her job at a nonprofit that helped resettle refugees and her obsession with old Blue Note jazz records. I told her about the gym, the quiet house, the silence. Clara never pushed for more, never asked probing questions. She just sat there in the passenger seat of my car after her PT sessions, sipping a lukewarm coffee from a paper cup and just listening. And somehow, that quiet listening felt louder and more meaningful than anything Celeste had said to me in months. One night, after I dropped Clara off, I walked into my house and felt it immediately. The air was thick with tension. Not the angry, explosive kind, but the unnerved, quiet kind. Celeste was sitting at the dining room table. A half-full glass of red wine sat untouched next to her dinner. Her phone was face down on the table. She was waiting. She didn't look up as I closed the door. "You've been out a lot," she said, her voice flat. "Yeah," I replied, walking to the fridge to get a bottle of water. "With who?" I shut the refrigerator door and turned slowly to face her. "Does it matter?" Her eyes finally met mine. For the first time in a very long time, they weren't smug or defiant. They were raw, uncertain. "Are you seeing someone, Julian?" I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just let the question hang in the air between us, letting the weight of it settle. "Maybe." That single word cracked her composure. It was a visible fissure in her carefully constructed facade. She stood up so fast that she bumped the table, and the wine glass wobbled, sending a few red drops spilling onto the white napkin like a miniature crime scene. "Wow," she breathed, her voice a mix of disbelief and outrage. "Just like that?" I tilted my head. "You're surprised?" "I thought we were figuring things out," she exclaimed. "I meant me figuring things out, not this." "Ah, there it is," I said, my voice as calm as a frozen lake. "You were figuring out how to have everything. I was just figuring out how to survive it." She stepped closer, her voice rising. "You said you weren't looking for anyone." "I wasn't," I replied honestly. "But sometimes things find you when you stop looking for them." And just like that, silence. But it wasn't my silence this time. It was hers. She had nothing. No clever retort, no psychological blame shifting, no pre-written script to follow. I picked up my microwave dinner and sat at the kitchen counter, eating as if it were just another Wednesday. Because to me, it was. The final confrontation happened at a coffee shop. Clara and I were meeting on a quiet afternoon. The place had the usual vibe. Exposed brick, crooked tables, baristas with too many piercings. We were laughing about a story she was telling me when the bell on the door chimed. I didn't need to look. I felt it, a cold shift in the atmosphere. It was Celeste. She looked tired, stripped of her usual polish. No makeup, hair in a messy bun, wearing a hoodie that was slightly too big for her, the universal. "I'm doing fine, thanks," uniform of someone who was decidedly not. She ordered her drink, her eyes glued to her phone, until she turned from the counter and saw me, and saw Clara. She froze. I saw her jaw tighten. Clara noticed my posture change instantly. "You okay?" she whispered. I nodded slowly. "Yeah, just a ghost." Celeste didn't walk out. Of course she didn't. That wasn't her style. She stormed over to our table, her face a thundercloud. "Seriously?" she snapped, her voice sharp enough to cut through the cafe's indie playlist. "This is how you do it? You humiliate me? With her?" Clara blinked, but stayed calm. Queen behavior. I didn't rise to the bait. I didn't flinch. I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Hello, Celeste. You couldn't even pretend to be discreet." "Discreet?" I raised an eyebrow. "You dropped your open marriage speech over lukewarm hot dogs and red Solo cups. I think we're a little past discreet." People were watching now. Forks paused midair. The barista wisely turned the music down. Clara quietly placed a hand on the back of my chair. It was a small, steadying gesture. "You're really doing this?" Celeste's voice trembled with rage. "You're just moving on?" I looked at her, my gaze as calm as the deep ocean. "Celeste, you wanted freedom. Not like this. What did you expect?" I asked, my voice still low but carrying across the suddenly silent cafe. "Did you expect that I would stay frozen in time while you went off to explore yourself over cocktails and your coworkers' abs? You said you didn't want to be owned, so I let go. Completely. Congratulations." "You're cruel," she hissed. "No." I leaned back, my voice firm. "You know what was cruel? Rewriting the rules of the game halfway through, and then handing me the broken pieces with a smile. That was cruel." She blinked. That one landed. "You don't even care anymore, do you?" she whispered, her anger deflating into disbelief. I finished my coffee, placed the cup gently in its saucer, and looked her dead in the eye. "Celeste," I said, my voice clear and final, "isn't this exactly the kind of relationship you wanted?" Silence. Her face crumbled just enough to reveal the truth. She had never wanted freedom. She had wanted power without consequence. And in that moment, standing in the middle of a coffee shop, she had neither. Clara touched my shoulder lightly. "Let's go," she said gently. I nodded. We stood up and walked right past Celeste without another word. As we stepped out into the crisp afternoon air, I took a deep breath. For the first time in a long, long time, I felt truly, completely free. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I was upset or replaying the confrontation in my head, but because my body felt electric, still catching up to a new reality where I didn't owe Celeste anything anymore. No explanations, no emotional labor, no waiting. Just the quiet, steady rhythm of letting go. At 6 a.m., I made coffee. 1 cup, as was my new custom. I sat at the kitchen table and pulled out a manila envelope I had been keeping in the junk drawer, tucked beneath old takeout menus and expired coupons. Divorce papers. Signed, notarized, clean. It felt like cutting off a dead branch before it could infect the entire tree. I had signed them a week ago, after a long, quiet talk with a lawyer named Barry. I laid them on the table, flat and open, waiting. Celeste emerged from the guest room just after 7, wearing the same faded university sweatshirt she used to steal from my side of the closet on lazy Sundays. It was funny how fabric could hold memories longer than people could. She stopped mid-step when she saw the papers. What? What is that?" I didn't look up from my coffee. "You already know." She walked slowly toward the table as if it might bite her. Her fingers trembled as she picked up the top page and read the header. "You already signed them," she whispered, her voice hollow. "A week ago. You didn't even talk to me about this." I finally looked at her, my gaze steady. "You talked enough for both of us, Celeste." She stared at me, her jaw tight, tears threatening but not quite falling. "I never actually cheated on you. You know that, right? It was just flirting." It was a pathetic, last-ditch lie, but I didn't even have the energy to call her on it. "It doesn't matter." "What do you mean it doesn't matter?" "I mean, the damage wasn't about what you did," I said, my voice even and calm. "It was about what you stopped doing. You stopped choosing me. Every day, for a long time, you stopped choosing me." She sank into the chair across from me, as if her knees had given out. I thought maybe we could fix it. Start over. I gave her a look she used to know, well, the look I gave contractors who missed deadlines. The one that meant there were no more extensions, no more excuses. The calm, unmoved finality. There's no over left to start from. "You really don't care anymore," she said. More a statement than a question. "I care," I said, and I meant it. "I just don't care enough to stay." Her face finally crumpled. Not in a dramatic, theatrical way, but in quiet, utter defeat. And still I didn't reach for her. That wasn't my role anymore. "You were supposed to be the one who fought," she whispered, the words barely audible. "You always did." I stood up from the table, my own chair scraping softly against the hardwood floor. "This time," I said, "I fought for me." Then I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her there with my old sweatshirt and her newfound freedom, and the deafening echo of what we used to be. I packed a single bag. No rush, no storming out, just precision. By the time the sun came up, I was already gone. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks later. Quick, clean, no fault. Celeste didn't contest anything. She just signed the final papers with the same bored, distant expression she used when choosing wine at the grocery store. Afterwards, she sent me a single text. Guess that's that. I didn't reply. My new apartment wasn't fancy. One bedroom, thin walls, and a carpet that looked like it had survived at least one indoor hurricane. But it was mine. My space, my rules, my silence. And I learned that silence, when you choose it, can be holy. No more waiting for a key in the door. No more emotional roulette. As for Clara, we kept it simple. Still no labels, still no grand plans. Just two people learning how to exist again without apology. We'd meet for walks, share terrible takeout, and laugh at our own broken pieces. She never tried to fix me. She just made space for me to be, and that was more than enough. People sometimes ask if I regret it, if I wish I'd tried harder, if I miss her. Here's what I tell them. I don't miss her. I miss who I thought she was. There's a profound difference. She wanted freedom, and in the end, she got it. But me, I just wanted peace. And now, in the quiet of my own life, I have it. It's not a victory of fireworks and revenge. It's a victory of stillness. And sometimes that's the loudest kind of victory there is.